everybody, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, Justin, John, oh my god, and Attack Kiki. Attack Kiki said she was not waiting for my cue today, and she's a beast today. Alright, Beast, let's go, Beast. I'm exiling the Beast. 1 second. 1 second. Exiling Beast. Noms in my face. Miss Noms. It's like she knows we're going to go on a road trip tomorrow and she's just like, yeah, Kiki. But, I mean, yesterday she was a pain for David and then she was an angel for me for most of the day. And then today she was an angel for David and now she's a total pain in the butt for me. Welcome to Puppies. Hello, hello, and Clavicus, thank you for the 34 months. Pretty darn amazing. Pretty darn amazing that anybody's heard her drop her bone. Pretty darn amazing that anybody's still watching after all this time. So, I was talking to a new patron yesterday who mentioned how much they were really enjoying this whole pink underpainting thing. So I was thinking that maybe I would pick out a couple of models where we could do like limited color schemes with underpainting kind of thing. Because it's not just pink and white that you can do this with. Like, you could do other colors with this sort of technique. Yellow and pink just work really well. But, and everybody has problems painting yellow, so it makes sense, right? But you could do other stuff. You could totally do other stuff. So maybe we'll do that. But I mean, yeah, colored underpainting is a thing. It's very in vogue right now. As I mentioned before, Matt DiPietro, who does Miniature Monthly, also is a heavy colored underpainter. And so, yeah, we could do that. We can do that. There are so many ways to use underpainting. So many ways. You all know I'm a big underpainter. I'm just usually a black and white underpainter and not a color underpainter, But colored underpainting, as you can see with this, does save you a lot of time. So, very useful. Kiki, settle down and chew your bone. I just gave you a fresh bone. The blends are actually just Arcane. We were just talking about underpainting, but yeah, the blends are actually not as nice. Although this is a nice blend, but this is all blending the underpainting and then just putting a heavy yellow wash over the top. So it's actually easier than you think. And Arcane, all of these past streams on this model are on Reaper Miniatures YouTube. So you could go and look up Ailene, Sister Ailene, or her number. Both SKU and name should be on there, but I'm not sure. And you can see, actually, we started doing this study in yellows with the pink underpainting, just because a lot of people have heard about the pink underpainting, so I wanted to do it on stream. But yeah, so essentially this is all just me. Actually, the actual blending was done with these colors. The actual blending is these. And then we take a heavy coat, a heavy wash of this, and we just don't let it pool. We actually draw it off, so it's more like a really heavy glaze, so that the pink shows through as orange. And because we're putting a really heavy glaze over the top, it also helps with blending, because glazing is one of the ways you make your blends appear smooth. So that is how this was done. And actually these three colors plus, where's my rogue shadow? There. These are the only colors on this model. These are the only colors used on this model. We are about to do some bronze NMM because I want to keep this a study in yellows. And I'm going to see, I don't think I can really create the bronze I need from these four colors, but I'm going to give a shot at it. Yeah, super thin yellow over the pink here. Just a little bit of yellow. Like if you look at it, you can see the little bit of blush of yellow up there. And then this is the brown here was mixed with the thing. So I'm going to try to mix the brown and see if I can make it into something we can use for bronze NMM so that I can keep this a limited palette model that you'd never think was limited palette. But yeah, that yellow hint is a little bit. I wanted a little bit of the hint of kind of the dawn colors, the transitions. So yeah. So yes, okay. So all right, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, yellow. Every good gold or bronze or brass NMM starts with the yellow. I was using the full shades just so we all know. Technically, the actual colors used, well, okay, these were the actual colors. But if you just look at pigments, Candlelight is just a lighter version of Lantern. And Runic is just a lighter version of Clear Magenta. So really, the limited palette, if I wasn't taking shortcuts, these are the 4 colors. So these are Pure White, Lantern Yellow, Clear Magenta, and Rogue Shadow. And the reason I use Rogue Shadow instead of Brown Liner is that Rogue Shadow already has some red in it. This may bite me now when I go to mix the bronze. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I would want something that was a little more yellow. But when I go to mix colors, like when I'm mixing this bronze, I am going to use the full saturation colors here instead of the ones with white, because these are essentially just versions of these 2 colors with white in them. So Candlelight is there's small variations, but in general, that is what they are. So Runic Glow is a magenta with white in it, and I think just a touch of blue, and I don't remember. And then the Candlelight is a Lantern with just a touch, I think, of red in it. But yeah, Peter Michael, right? Yeah. Thank you for the Prime sub. Thank you. Yes. And welcome. I'm Anne. I work for Reaper Miniatures. I have my 20-year anniversary coming up. I used to work at HQ. I designed the Master Series paint line and was their staff painter for years. That's my background. And that's why I'm here on Reaper Twitch. And as I mentioned, we've been doing this show for ages. We have over 500 episodes, and it's all on Reaper Miniatures YouTube. So that's a huge knowledge font with all different models, like, because we do a 6-model rotation and then we work in new models as we finish one. So we've got, actually, Quindy, that would be an interesting thing to figure out. I don't know if you can figure that out, but how many models we've actually painted on this show from the time we started doing like the full paint onward. I'd be curious. I would think it's got to be a couple dozen at this point of all different subject matters, all different sizes. Some of them we didn't finish, like the big dragon, that we just did parts of. Although technically you could use the parts we did do and you could just extrapolate and paint the rest of the dragon. It's not that hard. It just takes time. More than 10, less than 5,000. Yep. Anyway, so cool. So we're going to move the lighter variants of these colors over, and we're going to, because I want to make a pretty deep, rich base for my bronze. And the color I'm aiming for is something close to rich leather. I may not be able to hit it. We'll see. But I'm using as close to clear brights or pure pigment colors as I can, except I'm not using a straight black. So we'll start with a very heavy load. As you can see, the rich leather is very yellowy, right? So that tells us straight off we need to start with a very heavy load of yellow. Go back. There we go. There. So there's our palette. Oh, and of course my lantern wants to clog. Silly lantern. Okay, yeah, that would be cool. I would just like to know that. That was just like, I was just thinking about that and going, how many models have I actually painted on this show after so much time? Because, I've forgotten so many of them at this point. Yeah, and just a reminder to everybody, actually, with that, I am going on a road trip with my puppy to see my parents down to Arizona. I will be gone tomorrow, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. I get back Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we'll resume the show. So the next thing I need to do is, since all browns are muted oranges, this one's just a very yellowy yellowy orange. I want a little bit, I need to make it orange, so I need to add a little bit of clear magenta. However, oh, snow last night in Arizona. Yeah, my mom said it's been very cold. She said the weather was supposed to be a little bit better on the weekend, so it doesn't matter. I want to see my folks either way. If the weather's great, the weather's great. If it's not great, it's still going to be probably about what it is. It's actually warmer than it is here. When she texted me, I think yesterday, she said it was 60, and it was like 52 or 51 here, so they're still warmer than I am here. All right, where's my mixing brush? Mixing brush, there you are. Now, I just had another thought, and this is that I may want to do this kind of the other way. I may want to actually add my rogue shadow first, kind of get to the darkness level that I want here, evaluate my color, and then add the magenta. Add the magenta slowly to try to match this color. And this color is not made with magenta and orange shade yellow. It's not. So we are trying to do, and this is perfectly possible, but it is possible to make colors match another color even though you're not using the same pigments, depending on the color. I do this a lot with yellow oxides. I mix my mix other colors to make a color that looks like yellow oxide instead of using like NMM gold base, for example. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit, just a tiny bit of rogue shadow. Tiny little drop, not even like, more like a quarter drop there on the side, because I know how much it's going to impact the yellow. You would turn to dust, yeah. All right, I'm going to add 1 drop of water. But the reason I've decided to do it this way and go with the yellow and the rogue shadow, I know this is going to push me like to an olivey green instead, but so little red in this. Like, you can see how yellow it is. So with that, I'm like, I could probably get close but very green with rogue shadow. And the way to neutralize green in a color is to add red. So we're going to try to work it this way. I'm almost done with my PDF, my Patreon PDF. And rogue shadow does have some red in it, remember. So that's the other thing, is I really want to add the rogue shadow in and see we're popping, we're actually a little bit more brownish than I thought. So we want to really tip it dark, though. I want to get to the shade, which means the relative aspect of light and dark. Now we're getting green. I want it a little darker, though, just a little bit. That's getting there. All right, so we've got this green. And it's about the shade of light and dark that this color is. And if I really want to test that, I can grab my rich leather. Yeah, she got up on my lap without being invited to, Kodiak, so it was very, very chompy. Shadow Raven. You're suffering for the art. So I want to get a little bit of this up here so I can see, am I about the right shade of light and dark? I'm actually maybe even a little darker than I should be. We'll see. That's fixable, though. A little bit darker than we should be is okay, because that lets us add a tiny bit of white. All these colors that we're working with, especially because we're working with a liner for our dark, liners are translucent. Magenta and yellow are very translucent. So if we want this to cover at all, we probably do want to add some white to it, which means that needing to lighten it a little bit to match our rich leather is actually not a bad deal. And I could just use rich leather if I wanted to, but I thought, you know, maybe it'd be fun to try to mix something that's close. So here we go. Here we go, folks. We're going to add just a little bit of this red. Remember, if your color looks greenish, if you're mixing a brown and your color looks greenish and you don't want greenish, add a tiny touch of red. In this case, our red is magenta, which a lot of people think of as a purple, but it's not. It's a cold red. I argue with David about this all the time. And that's going to warm it up, though. That just took out a bunch of our green. We're going to pop more magenta in. I'm just being cautious because a lot of times colors that, there are colors that have a what they call high dispersion. Dispersion is, oh, we're getting there, guys. Ooh, look at that, we're getting there. So now I'm going to add a tiny touch of white to lighten it, and then I can tune it closer to that. But you can see how close we're getting. Very close. Up. Bye, Shadow Raven, sorry. Sorry for the internets. Yep, this is going to clog, so hold on. Rather than squeeze it and then have a bunch of it come out and ruin our color, I'm just going to pokey tool it. All right, so I'm going to do the very, very slight, just put a little on my brush. Wow, this is really coming up close. This now looks like NMM Gold Shadow. So this is actually, I could run with this, actually. I could run with this. I think I will run with this. All right, so now I know kind of where I'm at. Now I want a shadow color, so I'm going to drop 1 drop of yellow, 1 drop of magenta, since these are the only colors we're using. And 2 drops, 3 drops of Rogue Shadow in here. We're going to do 2 first. A drop of water. And that comes up to a nice shadow. That's great. So that's a 2-to-1-to-1 with the Rogue Shadow Magenta Lantern. And then Kodiak samples are colors that people are mixing, especially when you've got a new mixer, which I don't know, because now, the problem is Ed was a backup mixer for me. So, like, I don't know if they have a new person kind of backing up the existing mixer at this point. But anyway, often a formula won't go to plan, and you have to load pigment into it, extra pigment, to try to get it to match. And there's always the chance when you do that you're going to push it off in a way that's almost impossible to recover from. And at that point, your best option, instead of sinking more very expensive pigment into the color, is to just put it out as a sample. So samples are not existing colors. They are usually offshoots of existing colors. But often, like, also if you're not paying attention, like you might put pigment D in instead of E. Things like that. Or when you're reading the formula sheet, maybe you kind of like jump to the line above without noticing. Things like that. So those can essentially come up with colors that are not usable, but they're still good colors, and so we put them out as samples for free. That gives people an option to sample our product and if they haven't tried MSP before. The downside is none of them have names, and often the formulas aren't recreatable because they aren't written down because they're mistakes. So consider that bottle your only bottle of that particular color, unless you place another order fairly quickly, and then you might get a duplicate. But yeah, they're just for fun. If you ever do have a sample that you adore, but that, you know, you're getting low on, not out, please, but low, and I am at ReaperCon, you can bring it to ReaperCon if you are also there and say, Ann, how do I make this color? And show it to me, and as long as there's a little left, I can look at it and pretty much tell you how to mix it. You know what? Those are kind of dicey, Big Chimpo. I hate to say it, but I mean, okay, if you do a chemical analysis, you can do it. But like spectral analysis, actually spectral analysis was all the rage when I started at Reaper, and Al, who was one of the Reaper founders, who has since retired, actually did a spectral analysis on some of the colors that I wanted to use from. I wanted to imitate like a couple colors from a different company, and honestly, the formulas we got back were crap. So I don't find it, honestly, Big Chimpo, I don't find it necessary. I can just look at the freaking color and tell you. And if I have a question, then within 2 minutes of mixing, I can tell you. And match the color. Like, my superpowers on this are so impressive that the actual Sherwin-Williams like reps, like the paint mixing reps who came by to see our operation, were floored. But it's just having so many years of looking at the product and kind of examining why it works and mixing colors and mostly having to correct colors, like I was just describing to you. When the formula doesn't match right away, which it almost never does, you have to do a little bit of correction, and that, so okay, this is our color. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that any paint hobby color, and I actually am talking about this, I'm finishing my PDF on blues for the Patreon, and I ended up talking a lot more about pigments. I still talk about tips for kind of, how to deal with highlighting blues when you're seeing brushstrokes and you just don't know what the heck to do, because there's definitely a reason for that. But in talking about the reason that happens, I had to go into pigment, and so I end up talking a lot about the two types of blue pigment that are traditionally seen today in hobby paint. And really, the thing that will influence that is the first most priority thing is price. Price and accessibility. So can you find the pigment, and is it inexpensive enough for you to use on your product? Because pigments are one of the most expensive things already that we buy for our paint department at Reaper, and so some pigments are just way, way out of line. So out of line that even art companies aren't really using them anymore, or if you find them, they're incredibly expensive. For instance, try to find a real cobalt blue these days. I went looking on the internet, and a lot of things are called cobalt blue, but when you go in and read the fine print, they actually say it's a combination of pigments, or they'll just actually in the fine print say that it's a hue, and that means they're using other pigments to match the color and opacity. Yeah, right. Actually, there is a mummy brown equivalent now. I mean, actually, I'm super excited to use it. I've gotten sidelined because I've had so much work to do, but as far as I can tell, Royal Brown from Chimera Colors' second set is a mummy brown equivalent. It's a transparent brown. It's got that meaty, reddish, yellowish. It's hard to describe, but it's like the minute I saw it, I'm like, because I was looking up, at one point I was looking up online swatches of actual mummy brown. There are a couple out there. And I was trying to figure out if I could make an equivalent for it with MSP. So when I saw Royal Brown, I was like, yeah, they did it. Right, exactly. But it's like, it's a weird, like you look at the original mummy brown, like there's a swatch on the internet that when you look at it, you can just tell that meat went into it. Like it's gross, and yet it's a beautiful color, and it's a warm, transparent brown. And painters, like over the ages, have like, because they were stuck with oxides, and ochres, like, which is dirt, right? Your yellow oxides, your yellow ochres, your siennas, all these things are dirt. And so they're opaque, generally. And so whenever artists got their hands on a beautiful, transparent brown, they would just go bonkers for it. So it's the Impossible Burger paint. Yep, exactly. It's not necessarily order, it is formula, and there are variants in formula, but Turgeon, the thing that actually has the biggest impact is both grind of the pigment, how you grind it for how long, and the properties like you use, and heat. Heat has a huge impact on pigments and can change a color from green to blue to purple in some pigments. I believe cobalt was like that. And then, yeah, exactly, sepia. Yes, the popularity of sepia because it's translucent. Because, yeah, for literally ages, it was hard to find, if you were an artist, it was hard to find a translucent brown. And you want those for skin tones. Like, to get the luminous kind of quality for skin tones, like, those are the paints that work really well. In oils, anyway. But yeah, so, and you have to think about this kind of from an oil painting perspective because that's what a lot of people were coming at, a lot of artists over the ages, the centuries before this one. This one, we're all about like the acrylics and stuff, but even so, oils are still king. So I'm going to actually use my shadow color here, which I also mixed, if you remember, using the same colors, and I'm going to make that my leather color. I need to figure out, I think these sleeves I'm actually going to do with the pink. Because I need to alternate colors. And I think I'm going to use the straight liner for the handle of the mace. But all my leather will be this dark brown, and then I'll figure out how to highlight it. See, I'm enjoying this limited palette piece. It's working pretty well. But yeah, so it was very fun yesterday to go looking around for some of the pigment information, where I had to like really do a deep. I didn't put some of the information I didn't put into the PDF because it would have been distracting, like all the cobalt information that I looked up. But I did also search through my other paint collections to find examples of paints that use the ultramarine pigment, which is, you know, synthetic nowadays, as almost all pigments are, except maybe lamp black, because carbon is everywhere. And titanium white, it still has titanium. Titanium dioxide, I think. But there we go. So let's just paint over this bag. But yeah, usually it's ultramarine or phthalo. And so I go into a bit about those pigments and why you have trouble with them. So this PDF is going to be, it's a little on the shorter side, but I think it's very interesting. I had fun writing it. I haven't done the pictures yet. I have to do the swatches and examples. And then I can, I'll get it up before I leave on my road trip tomorrow. All right, so just like doing a little bit. I feel like I need to go up a little bit with my camera. There we go. Keep it frame. Well, it's titanium dioxide, and it is technically, I don't know that you call it a metal, it's a mineral, right? Chemical. Hold on. Let's look it up. We can Google this. I think it's titanium dioxide. 1 second. I will find out. Yeah, it's titanium dioxide. I was right. Opaque white pigment with high opacity. And since it's a dioxide, technically it's an oxide, which would explain why it has high coverage. Very color stable. Yeah. Looking to see if they give me any chemical stuff in here. Oh, this is a very, very coarse one. Yeah, this is definitely for industrial use. You got to watch it like when you're looking up. Whenever I see 50 microns, I know it's way too coarse to be a paint pigment. But a lot of these things aren't going to actually give us, and there's a metallic, so that's not actually correct. So yeah, titanium dioxide. I have some chem stuff here. When used as a pigment called titanium white, it's a white solid insoluble to water. It is technically a chemical compound. Mineral forms of it appear, and that's what people would have used back in the day. Wow, it's used in food coloring. Interesting. Yep. Fun stuff. Fun stuff. I always like to read about pigments stuff. I always learn stuff. Yeah, it's inert. So it's a chemical compound that can also be found in a natural mineral form. And Major Asnabel, that's pretty much every pigment these days. Like, all pigments started out as a natural substance, right? That people ground down or smushed or did something to, soaked to use it as a dye or a pigment. And then science came around as various materials got a lot more expensive. There was a demand for lower cost variables of those. And so in that, I want to say late 17, early to mid to late 1800s, because during the Renaissance, essentially, artists, art, paintings, oh, we're regard, you know. So there were companies that essentially learned to synthesize these various substances, because science, art science. And so then synthetic forms became available, and over time we've done things like make those synthetic forms in different ways so that we can get, say, the high density pigments that are popular nowadays that Reaper uses and also are being used in the new versions of like cadmium red hue, which is a, hey, this looks like cadmium red and it covers kind of like cadmium red, but it's not cadmium red, it's actually a high density pigment. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, they're huge, right? It's a huge technology for textiles and for all sorts of stuff. Even for inks, because inks were made from dyes, right? So when you could make a light, fast ink that wouldn't fade when you were still writing on parchment, pretty useful. So yeah, that's, it's fun stuff. It's fun stuff. So yes. But I will say that in line with it being titanium, I always felt this when I lifted up one of the buckets of white base at Reaper, because the white base has all that white pigment, all that titanium dioxide in it. It is actually significantly heavier than any of the other bases. Like a 5-gallon bucket of white base, which has a heavy load of titanium white pigment, is 60 pounds or more. I was lifting that stuff every day. You better bet I had biceps back in those days. Pretty crazy. All right. This vase is going to be a pain in the butt. Pain in the butt. But because it's so tiny, we'll have to simplify it, which is the plus. Yeah, nowadays it's all synthesized. Little chemical processes. Happy little chemical processes. Creating a thing that you then grind. Grind and put in solution with other things to create paint. I want to do this. This is very probably Age of Marvel because, or as bronze, because I wanted this to be a monochromatic figure, remember? Except for the accent color. So if I were painting it on my own, would I put some silver in here? Maybe. But I've kind of gotten attracted to this whole thing of making this model all yellow. And so far, except for the pink, it's all yellow. So I'm quite happy with this. Like every color has been mixed just with these colors. Now, could I mix a gray with this? Maybe, but maybe not. You'll get a gray if you only use Rogue Shadow and white. I might be able to correct it to be a neutralish gray. So yeah, maybe I could do that with the mace. Maybe I could do that with the mace. Yeah, I want to stick entirely to colors I've used. I want to stick to these 4 colors. Just to show the range of what you can do. I'll try to mix it, but I probably wouldn't like the color effect, and it would probably jar with everything else. I mean, I guess I could put it on the sleeve, but I don't know. I'm not sure it would be the right color choice for the model. Shall we say that? We're very saturated here, and we're very warm, and we're very golden. So to go apart from that, you're going to really attract the eye. Like even now, the gray kind of sticks out, right? So if I went to a mixed gray, it would be similar. I definitely want the gold edging around the tabard here. I guess what I come down to is there's very few places on this model where I would want a gray or a silver and they kind of would stick out and not necessarily work with the rest of the colors, right? So we'll see. I'll mix one just to show you guys how to mix it. It's rough doing a gray sometimes without the blue component, but because I have the black and the white, or the liner and the white, I might be able to get close, depending. If it shifts, I have to be able to neutralize it. I have to be able to make it a neutral gray. So the answer is probably, but it might turn into a brown gray. It's probably going to be a very brown gray. But let's see. I could do a purple gray pretty easily. But it won't be like a pure gray. And it probably won't be even close. So let's see. Let's see what Rogue Shadow looks like. Because you really just have to start with your black and your white, right? And our black and our white here are Rogue Shadow and pure white. So if you're going to mix it, you got to go and do it. And usually with black and white, if you don't know this ratio, the way that pigments work with dispersion is that black is a much higher dispersion pigment than white is. What that means is you need less of a high dispersion color. And all dispersion is relative. For instance, when you add red to yellow, you can tell that red has a higher dispersion than yellow does because it overwhelms the yellow very easily. Same with black and white. But for example, if you add blue to red, the blue overwhelms the red. So dispersion is all relative and it's on a scale. It's not an absolute. So usually for a mid-gray, you want 2 white to 1 black. Yeah, stone, concrete, and fur is when you've got the warm grays going on. So how gray do we get here? We have a bit of purple, and that's because, as I mentioned, this is one of the cues that there is red in this color. Because you get that purpley hue. Because black plus red actually equals purple. It doesn't actually necessarily just give you a dark neutral red. If you want that, you have to add green. All right, so now we've got this gray, but it's a bit purple, so I'm in luck. I can add a little yellow to it to try to cancel the purple. So remember, when you're trying to cancel out a color shift, you add the opposite color. Now, this is not always true. There are some pigments that will naturally cancel out other pigments that have a talent that way. So I'm using the tiniest bit of yellow here. I want to take this back. I want to inch it back. So I'm just using tiny touches here. And sometimes it's just about this, because I know the yellow is high dispersion and I don't want to overwhelm this gray. When I lose that purple, when I have that neutral, which I kind of do there, and that was after only tiny touches of yellow, remember. Now I'm going to add a little white to it, because adding white is again going to show me if there's still a shift toward a particular pigment. Just the same as with a dark color. If I want to know, then I add white and I look at the color. Now the problem here is that you have to be real careful. If you go too warm with the yellow, you don't have a straight purple to bring it back down. You only have red. And that's where you miss blue. That's where you really feel the lack of a blue. So this is about as neutral, I think, as I could get. I don't want to add more yellow because it's going to shove it over. So just looking at this, I'm not sure that it's a great color to do the mason. I could certainly try it. It is a little bit weird. You guys aren't seeing it quite as odd as I am probably in person. It's not a color I would normally use for my NMM. I could try it, but I don't know. I'm not liking it so much. I'm going to do everything else and I'll make my decision. Perhaps we'll paint over the mace with it and see after I've blocked in everything. Yeah, but colors don't always bleach out to warm. I mean, if it's got dust and dirt ground in on the mech, then I could see it. All right. I am getting just some liner here. Now I'm going to go back to getting my gold blocked in. I'm going to block in everything else. But yeah, well, I mean, however you want to use it. It's like there is no wrong answer. None of us know what a battle tech looks like after it's been in service for 100 years, so, or 200 or whatever. But I wanted this liner because I realized my mace was really not lined at all back up against the cloth, which bugs me. And I want to do the handle. But yeah, I mean, warm grays, as you say, for organics are kind of a good call. So the reason that a gray is not a great choice for this is a hypersaturated color scheme. Everything is really bright. Our shadows are bright because we're using, magenta as an underlay. So we have very rich, very saturated shadows on this. Our yellows are really bright. Our pink is really bright and saturated. Even our white has a really kind of bright shadow, right? It's not grayed out shadows at all. So when you take this and you throw a gray that's kind of muted and weird into the middle of it, these two colors aren't liking each other. And the brighter I make this bronze, or the highlights that I bring it up with, the worse that's going to be. Gray, a pure gray would work better, but when you use, gray, when you use a muted color that is a gray also, like this is still kind of a purpley weird, it's not really a pure gray. So it's not a pure neutral. It's like, it's just problematic. Hey, Commander Salamander. This is all just fun and color theory where we're painting everything essentially yellow except for the pink accents. So every color on this model has been mixed with 4 colors. These 4 colors. So everything on the model. So it's what we call a limited palette thing. Limited palette challenge. I didn't necessarily start off wanting to do this. I wanted to paint, I wanted to underpaint the yellows with pink and white because a lot of people kind of like that technique and we hadn't done it on stream. But then once we got into it, I realized I could pretty much mix every color I needed on this model from just those 4 colors. So not so much art, but color foo. I have an art background, but honestly, I learned more from painting miniatures about art than I ever learned in my art classes. So but you don't have to be an artist to paint a good miniature. Good afternoon, Miss Jim. Yeah, I find them, you can use them to great effect. Like there are really, the way to do this, okay, we could use this color if I had a shader that would work with it. If I would have to pale it way out, like really bring it up high, I think, and then shade it probably with a purple. Like maybe then we could do it. But it's problematic when you want to use it with NMM because you need the full range usually, I think. For me anyway, I want a full range. It's just, yeah, everything is so saturated on this model that gray, big danger, Will Robinson. Big danger. You don't need a background in art to be artistic, though, like Kodiak. Like, art just being an artist, okay, so the loosest definition of art is really just that it makes you feel something, right? So if at any point you paint a model that other people see, and they're just like, wow, that makes me feel so awesome to look at it. Like, I really love how you did this, and I feel like, and maybe they get a feeling for the character, like they can tell what kind of character it is, and, that looks really wicked. Wow, that looks really evil, Then you've created an art piece, technically. So it's not like you have to be a great painter technically to create something that is quote unquote art. There are plenty of artists out there that, are not necessarily, they don't care about technique. They care about color, they care about light, they care about other stuff. They care about visceral impact, they care about contrast. There are so many ways to be artsy. I mean, at this point, you even have people taking normal paint by numbers and turning them into works of art, so. But just, paint to your own beat. Don't worry about what you are not. You don't, yeah, I mean, so what if you don't have an art background? So what if you don't want to paint really like high-end models? So what if you're happy painting for the tabletop? So what if you do want to paint really high-end models and you struggle with it? Like, it's your journey. Like, you shouldn't ever be made to feel like you are less than, as long as you are enjoying your journey. And trying to get around your own head so that you don't feel less than people who are doing amazing work is the key to really enjoying other people's amazing work. Like, when we compare ourselves to what other painters are doing that is amazing, like the AK book that I showed you guys yesterday, then we get sad, right? Then we feel like we're not good enough, or like, oh my gosh, I could never do that, and we just concentrate on the negative. But that keeps us, like, the comment that I get, I just want to throw my paintbrushes out the window. That's the worst thing you can say to an artist. Like, they want to inspire you, right? They don't want to bring you down. So, or maybe a few of them do, but I don't know. Not my friends, darn it. Not my friends. So, like, getting away from that comparisonitis gives you the ability to look at somebody else's model and really honestly just love it. And not feel pressured in some way as to your own work. Like, that's key. Like, I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself as a miniature painter. Yeah, it's not my own word. It's a word from a writing coach that I like. She calls it comparisonitis, because writers are just as bad. Any creative or artistic thing. I'm sure that quilters are every bit as bad. I'm just going to try to line around the inside of this and darken it down a bit. I'm probably going to have to paint over a bit. I just want this line. I feel like I don't have a good demarcation line here. I want to bring around that hard edge. Oh, you could totally get it. Yeah, but you know what? And I say this, like, having touched a bit on this yesterday, you're never going to get to that point in exactly that same way, but you may get to that point in your own different way. Like, that's another thing to realize, is just because you can't paint in a given style. And this is how I was made to feel in high school, and I was an artist, and the teacher we had 2 art teachers, and one of them was a photorealist. And I was made to feel like my cartoony style was inferior, right, to the photorealism. Just because he would whip out he would be working on this huge photorealistic piece, and I was like, I can never do that. Like, I'm never going to get to that level. There's no way I can. But what I could do is get to an amazing level that totally wasn't photorealistic. And that's the thing, right? So just because you love Matt DiPietro's work or Aaron Lovejoy's work, and you think, I'm never going to get to where I can paint that doesn't mean you can't get to the same level painting your own thing, your own style, right? So that isn't to say you shouldn't study with those people, because studying with different painters is what gives you the perspective to just choose a way that you enjoy. Trying different things, right? Yeah, I'm not streaming tomorrow, Twisted Oma. I'm not streaming tomorrow, not streaming Friday, not streaming Monday or Tuesday. And I will not be streaming over the weekend, of course, because I'll be down in Arizona with my folks. So putting a little line, just a little bit more lining here. Yeah, Yellow Day is my favorite day. And we started doing the Amaranth. You missed a lot, Richard, though, about why I wouldn't use a gray on this piece. So you may want to go back and watch some of the VOD in the middle of this. Because people asked if I could mix a gray or if I was going to do the gold medal all over. And I was kind of explaining why I can mix a gray, but it's kind of problematic. Now, maybe, actually, since I know I'm not probably going to use this gray, I am going to add a little bit more lantern to it. I want to see if I can make it into kind of a gray-brown, and if saturating it with a little more yellow makes it feasible. Probably not, but we'll see. Yeah. Oh, yuck, that sounds grotesque. Great clean one. That's pretty funny, actually. They needed to give him a bath towel, though. Yeah, Geekster traveling should be fine, though. Right, yeah, it's just progression. Like, as long as you're interested in the topic and the attempt is fun for you, it's at least interesting, I'm just going to pop some more yellow into this gray and see what I can make it do. Now, there will come a point where, yeah, this is a little more yellowy of a gray. Would it work? It might work, maybe. So just popped more lantern into this gray. Now it's much more yellow now. But now we're getting to the point where it's fast turning toward brown. It's still gray at this point. I am going to try to paint the mace this color just to see what it looks like, but if it's too distracting, then it's a no. But yeah, I mean, comes down to it. And a lot of us have kind of a competitive part of ourselves that makes us want to aspire to be, really good, and it feels overwhelming when we look at a huge difference. It's like as a starting film student, somebody who really is interested in movies, looking at Spielberg or one of the greats, and going, I could never do that, right? You can do something at that level. You just can't make Indiana Jones. You will make something different, But maybe you make something that's just as fun, right? There are writers out there where I start reading the book, I recognize that the grammar and the sentences are pretty terrible, but they are such a good storyteller that I keep reading. And so you can't call them a bad writer. Sure, maybe their technical ability isn't quite up to it, but they're a great storyteller, and you still enjoy the story after everything is said and done, even with all the flaws. So good is relative, and it depends on what you're seeking to get out of a given experience. It's close. Wolf gray is made with black, so it's going to be different. Where's my wolf? Wolf. It's much more yellow, much more warm. See that yellow hint now a little bit? Yeah, but you know what? Try to look at it. So wolf gray is lighter. Wolf gray is colder. See it? That's wolf. This is much darker. And you can see that yellow hint. Wolf gray is going to look, even though it's a warm gray, it's still going to look colder because it has like more like black in it. Coal black or lamp black, carbon black, which is what it is, that pigment does not give you a real true gray. It actually gives you a slight bluish cast, a slight cold cast. Oh no, yeah, when you recognize the filming, right? The film spot. That's funny. I didn't know they were coming out with a new one. Although I guess, you know, with the way Hollywood reboots franchises, I'm surprised they didn't before. But is it Spielberg? If it's not Spielberg... Alright, so just wanted to do a little bit more lining around the shield, inside the shield rim here, to make sure that I've got a nice crisp line. Because I can see like how my white has kind of crept up on the edges here, so... Alright. Now the bottom side of this is a little irregular, and that's going to give us a little bit of conflict there, but it's not going to be so immense that people notice it, so I'm going to ignore it for now. What's out there, Keeks? There's probably people with trash bins putting them away. It's trash day here. Gonna add a slight gold rimmer on the outside back here. And that's the bronze is looking pretty good. Yeah, for the most part, Dabber. Yeah, I mean, as long as they get I mean, you can. It's just like James Bond. You can reboot without Harrison. You just need to find a really, like, looks like Indiana Jones, kind of like however you imagine the character in your head. There's all sorts of ways. All right, so let's pop the gold onto the back side of this. And then I need to figure out the sleeve. I think it's going to be pink or purpley colored. But I don't want to make it too bright because it's just a sleeve. So this is the challenge. Oh no, yeah. I imagine that Harrison Ford, if he played his contract cards right, between Star Wars and, like, Indiana Jones and the other stuff he's done, The Fugitive, like, but especially the stuff with heavy merchandising that's still popular, I imagine he has more money than he needs. And if he does act, he just takes a movie that sounds fun. And that's fair, right? That's probably a great place to be as an actor. When you can just do the projects that sound fun to you. Well, he could just be a very private person. And maybe you never know. Like, maybe he just hates the fact that he's forever, like, bound to Star Wars. Like, he probably has favorite movies that he has done that nobody remembers, or nobody, like, you know, that's probably, like, I could see some personalities that being a point of contention. If you think your best work was done on The Fugitive, but all people want from you is Han Solo, you're going to be a little bit, like, grumpy. Oh, yeah, was to get another indie film. Well, maybe he really likes Indiana Jones then. Oh, yeah, and Blade Runner, right? Yeah. I mean, we don't know, right? It's because we don't know him. But obviously he's not totally a sucker, like a evil person to work with, because he, like, he's worked with a lot of directors and they tolerated him. So it could just be that he doesn't like the public eye but feels obligated to do some interviews here and there. I have no idea. You can't ever, I don't know. I try not to judge people. I've seen how terrible other, like, people are to celebrities. Like, how they can be very terrible to celebrities. And when you have that level of celebrity and also a very distinctive face, so people are going to recognize you. Like, I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all for not wanting to be friendly and outgoing to people. They probably have had so many bad experiences, like, I can't even imagine. And I've only been around a couple of famous people, but just even in that tiny window, I saw how inconsiderate and jerky people can be to a celebrity. And so, now I'm telling you folks, you can't always judge a celebrity. There could be a very good reason why they are like that. Yeah, I mean, and it's worse than that. I mean, even in person, people are just rude to you. Like, they treat you like an object and not a person. An object that owes them something. Like, one of the celebrities I was actually able to get close to and meet was George Lucas. So, and he's notoriously taciturn as well. And actually, after just standing in line to get up to, like, shake his hand and say, "Hi, I love your work, Mr. Lucas, thank you," after watching the crap that people pulled, I don't blame him. I wouldn't come out in public either. Like, yeah, so that's why I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are some grumpy and kind of jerky celebrities out there. Sure there are. Just like there are grumpy and jerky people. But I try not to judge them because I've seen too much. Yeah, right. Yes. Right, but that's like their superpower, right? Like, what if you don't have the superpower that lets you just interact with fans and keep your energy? What if you aren't that kind of person? What if you just love acting? Like, so, like, you hold up the people who are, like, really warm and like interact with their fans, but that's the kind of person they are. Not everybody can be that kind of person. Especially not when you're at a convention and you're there for hours and hours and hours with tons of people, right? Strangers. So, right, see? And a lot of us, I think, would be, right? A lot of us are introverts. Oh, no. I actually would love to meet Stephen King because I actually admire Stephen King more. When I was a teenager, I always did even then, I was always doing like a New Year's Eve kind of journal, the kind of retrospective on my year. And I was reading, I think it was Four Seasons at the time. And I remember writing in that journal that I wanted someday, I like wished and dreamed and hoped that someday I could write a book even half as good as Stephen King stuff. Because I really think he's one of the best living American authors, like, seriously, hands down. Just an incredible writer. Yes, he has his quirks, but all writers do. Yeah, and that's also what we were talking about. Sorry, when we were, I totally got derailed by staring at chat. Oh, when we were talking about how bad experiences stay foremost in your brain because you're a human. And that's because you were wired to remember the bad things because they might kill you back in your evolutionary background. So unfortunately, that happens. Like, yeah, yeah. unfortunately, that happens even with when you're meeting people, right? If you have too many bad experiences with people, you're going to start dreading going out in public, right? So, yeah. I mean, I love and thank the, universe for celebrities and stars who do give themselves, a lot of themselves, to their fans. And I hope those fans know how lucky they are, right? Because, yeah, it's good that we have all types. Okay, I'm going to try some pink here, guys, but I think I'm going to mix a tiny bit of yellow, or I'm going to glaze a tiny bit of yellow over it. Maybe I definitely want some purple shading. Okay, so let's talk about what we can do with our pink, since we were doing a lot with our yellow so far. Necro, you're funny. Lunch with Kevin Smith, yeah. There's like I would love to meet Peter Jackson. This is where my brother and I diverge. He loves George Lucas, and he is like, but I am all about like he's all Star Wars. I'm all Lord of the Rings. All right, so I'm going to grab this pink, and let's see what we can do with this pink. We know we can mix kind of a purple with it. We're going to try to do that. I want to create the sleeve there, and I don't want it to be as, I don't want it to be too punchy. So I want to use a lot and create the color that we created for the dark spot on the gem there. And just little touches of the pink and maybe a little bit of yellow shift at the top. So let's grab, we want our regular pink, I'm going to do 2 drops of pink, 1 drop of or just a half a drop actually, of the liner, just to see. Hello, Jazz Maestro. Hi there, this is a Reaper Mini. She's a great model. This is the Bones USA version, which is actually a really high quality material. Her name is Sister Ailene, and her item number is this, and she was sculpted by Bobby Jackson, the one, the only, one of our favorite sculptors. Yep, and we're doing yellow. So we did the pink underpaint with yellow over the top for this model. And then I'm only using 4 models, Jazz, to paint this entire, 4 paints to paint this entire model. So our 4 colors that we're using on this mini are these. And everything is a mix. Even the armor with that, it's going to be coming up more bronzy. That's a mix as well of just these 4 colors. So, yep. Yeah, and these all go to Reaper's YouTube, so Reaper Miniatures YouTube. You can find it with a search, I think, or Quindy can link it. But all of the VODs that I do, I'm here every weekday doing different models. We have a 6 model rotation. But if you search for that SKU or that name on our YouTube, you should find all of the sessions that we've had up to this point, where you can see the model go on in stages. Necro, you're funny. So yeah, that's what we're at. So now I'm doing a mix, and I want to come down with kind of a pinkish purple that I can use for the sleeve here. I don't want to make a real bright pink. I feel like it's going to be distracting. So I'm going to mix the liner color, the Rogue Shadow, because it's got a bit of red in it, with our magenta color. And I'm going to see if I can get kind of a muted purple. And this is where I have to be careful, because as I just was talking to people about, when you're muting colors, when you have such a very, very bright color scheme, muting colors can be chancy. But this purple I should be able to mitigate by putting the bright pink over the top and just using this as a shadow. We're used to seeing shadows being more muted. So I'm going to start with this purple here, and then I'm going to highlight it with the pink, and I'm going to add a little bit of a yellow highlight to the pink, a little bit of orange. Yeah, that's true. I'm here every day, but I'm about to be gone for 4 of them. Yes. I am road tripping with my puppy to see my folks, and so I will not be here tomorrow, the next day, or Monday or Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday, and we'll resume our rotation. But yeah, we do all sorts of models on here. We've done a crap ton. Gosh, I've been doing this for years, so we have over 500 episodes with all different models. Yeah, he's also really recognizable, right, Crowley? Like some celebrities could probably probably try to sneak around in public, but one of George R.R. Martin's friends and helpers pretty much said he told George like that George's biggest mistake was going on TV and letting people learn what he looks like. So now he gets interrupted and, you know, and stopped and everything when he's out in public. So, okay, so the purple is pretty muted. Notice how it kind of jars, though. It's not, because it's grayed out, it's not working real well with everything else. And if I just highlighted this purple, if I just highlighted this purple by like adding white to it, it would be kind of grayed out a little bit and it wouldn't look very good with everything else. So the way to make that muted tone look good with when it's surrounded by saturated colors is to use a saturated color to highlight it. So we are going to take our pink and we are going to highlight it with our runic glow. And the best thing you can do for celebrities is to remember they're just people and they're just trying to do their life, right? Their life other than being on a screen for you. And some people, like you say, some people, some celebrities really enjoy interacting with fans. Although, that said, many of them enjoy interacting with fans, but like they want to do it like at specific times, right? So when you just meet somebody at the grocery store, that's probably not the time to like, you know, ask them for an autograph. But when like they're at a convention and if they've made themselves available, that's a lot better time. Crowley, you're so funny. Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's just, I think Ernie Klein, who wrote Ready Player One, I was at a con with him and Germ. I went down just to hang out with Germ, but he was also hanging out with Ernie, so I got to meet Ernie as well. And this was before Ready Player One got super big and got made into a movie and stuff. It had just come out, I think. But Ernie at that con was much more, I'm at the con and I have specific times during the con that I really want to interact with my fans. But other times at the con that I really would prefer to have some time alone. And I think to me that particular decision was the resonated one where I was like, oh yeah, okay, that seems like a well-balanced approach to being a celebrity. You're funny, Valendar. Ernie knew Germ and was the one doing the interview. Germ had an interview thing at the con where he took questions from the audience and stuff, and Ernie was the one emceeing the interview. But then, of course, after Ready Player One got super popular, Ernie had his own fame. Cool, Jazz. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, if you hang out with people and you're not a dork and you're cool, you're just a person. They're just a person, right? If you hit it off, you hit it off. If you don't, you don't. Just like any person. I am making my white now. I want to underpaint a little bit on this pink because the pink is so transparent that it's not really it's not coming up on the purple. So if we look, see, I'm bringing the pink in, but it's still like purple, purple, purple is all I'm getting right now. And I don't want that much purple because I don't have that much purple elsewhere. I really want the pink to come through more. To do that, I'm going to have to put some white over this. Peter Dinklage is Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones. Pendrake, if you didn't watch the series, then you would not know him. But if you are a normal person and you are perchance put into a situation where you are talking with celebrities, for example, as I was when I was delivering miniatures to Germ, then it is best to remember to just be cool. Just be a normal person. They are normal people. That was the most useful thing I learned in interacting with people and having the opportunity to like be at a convention with Germ, just to kind of like observe how various levels of like celebrities in the writing field like choose to interact with their fans, right? It was really fascinating. And then again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just people are people, and they're going to try to craft a plan. If you get stuck being a celebrity, you're going to try to craft a plan that lets you keep your sanity and still have fun with it. Okay, so doing a little white underpainting here. Also an elf. Oh no. I hope you said hello back. Ah, okay. There we go. Lots of Peter Dinklage references there. Can encounter your Peter Dinklage any way you would like. So now I've got this underpainting. I can come back in with my pink, and now the pink is showing up a lot more. Now I've still got a lot of purple because it's showing through. If I want that purple to go away, I'm going to have to cover it up a lot more with my pink. Probably paint my pink more over the creases in the fabric and bring the front part up a bit more toward my pink. And it may have been a better option for me to choose to have, if I would have put down the pink and then shaded with the purple. But overall, it is reading more as pink now. It's just not reading as bright pink as this, right? Now I could just add touches of purple because I have my purple mixed up. One thing I could do is choose to shade down in the shadow with this muted purple. So let me grab some water and do that. And the theory behind this would be that purple is a complementary color to the yellow. So even though it's muted, if I put just a little bit of this in my shadows, then it will jive with the yellow. Yep, bye Crowley. Hey, do we have a Luca today? I'm going to add just a little bit of purple. Try bringing it in. So bring in a little bit more purple down here, and I can mute out that pink just a little. Oh, just got back to Spain. Okay. Hello, Zito. Yep. We're getting there. We're getting there. We at least got stuff blocked in. Okay, so adding the purple there helps a little bit with that. I've got the purple there in the gem too. I think adding a bit of this purple up here into the hood shadow is a good gambit. So then we're essentially getting a little bit more purple into our pinks. This is also a pretty good skin shading color, this purple, and when I go back in, because I haven't finished her skin, I've just blocked in the face, then I may want to do that to mixing. So I've got 5 or 10 more minutes. So one thing I can do is to, after I finish this last purple layer, and the nice thing about all these colors being very transparent is that it's so easy to layer and blend with them. So it's easy to blend in that purple. So let us see. I wanted to try that gray over here. Now that we've got everything blocked in, we can see the model, and I'll put the gray over the mace to see if we can make it work. It is a yellowy gray now, so it at least is part of our yellow scheme. It may work, it may not. The problem with it is that it's only there, right? It is a neutral, might work. The other problem with it is that it's very close to this cream. You see how it's kind of blending in? I might be able to correct that with some judicious shading. Ah. So my yellow gray is working better than the purpley gray would have for sure. And the thing about this gray, and an interesting effect that we're getting on this, in the palette you saw how yellowy it looked next to the wolf gray, which is more of a warm gray, but it's more of a pure gray. Here, we aren't seeing that yellow really show up in the gray once I put it on the model. The reason for that is that we have bright yellows all around it and a yellowish backer on it, which means that the tiny hint of yellow in this gray is totally overwhelmed by all the other yellow around it, and it's being made to look cooler because it's surrounded by brighter yellows. All right, so let me look. Well, I mean, it's only one place on the mini, and it kind of disappears into the robes. And it's nice to have like a contrasting metal, but if I look around this piece, there isn't really anywhere else I can put it. I wouldn't want to do the breastplate different. I want the armor to be that color. So like we would only have, and if you're going to have a color only one place, a neutral is acceptable. That's funny, Kornika. I mean, Prince Harry wants to go jogging like everybody else. It's just funny. Because there are so many humans in the world, though, it's so funny when you run into a specific human that you've seen on TV. So yeah, so it really just kind of like sits there, right? And it's going to be a little problematic to shade and highlight because we don't have a pure black or gray. We've got just the rogue shadow. I can try to make the rogue shadow go a little bit more neutral by adding yellow to it. That might work. Yeah, I mean, I know how I mixed everything, so I wouldn't. The thing is, Big Chimpo, when you've only got 4 pigments that you're using, or 4 colors that you're using, your options are very, very limited. The where you get into trouble with mixing is when you have 6 or 8 colors you're using, and you start mixing more than 2 at a time. And when I say more than 2, I mean 2 colors plus white or plus dark. I can recreate any of these colors at this point, and I don't have to get perfect because everything's kind of all mixed together. That's funny. Morrissey's always had that attitude. But yeah, so even though I'm mixing all these different colors, I'm really only using I'm only using 4, so I wouldn't bother with the index card. Like I made it, like when I first started out, I made a note, but I haven't touched the note or referenced the note since then because I actually changed it up a bit. So yeah. Well, a lot of musicians also get energy from people, right? Being up on stage and all that. That helps probably. So yeah, I wouldn't need to make any notes on this. I can get close enough. Because it's logical, right? When I stop and I look at this bronze, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I had to start with yellow, and then I actually brought it down to green, and then I added magenta. You don't have to get perfect, Big Chimpo. Like, people think you have to get perfect match. You don't. You don't even. Like, get close. That's all you need. Honestly, even if I mixed a color for this bronze armor that is slightly different for next time, the fact that I'm going to be shading and highlighting it means that any differentiations or discrepancies in my base color and my touch-up color aren't even going to be noticed. But yeah, it is totally possible to get yourself into a horrible situation if you've got 6 or 8 colors and you're trying to mix. When you start mixing 3 colors plus white or black, that's when you start getting into the danger zone, where you could definitely have like you have just a little bit of one color in addition to like these other 3, and you forget, and then it's really off. Even then though, like, you just need to get close. All you need is close. Unless it's really different, people aren't going to notice. Like, the worst case scenario is you get close, it's still a little different, you can tell, and so you just have to rebase coat the bit, right? Yeah, right. Some of us juggling way too many models. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, I'm juggling a lot of models, and obviously for some of these, I do make notes on color. Like if I mix, especially if I mix a new color, that I'm out of 2 colors that are more complicated. The thing is, when you're doing just clear brights, essentially, clear brights plus a black and a white, and the white is a clear bright too. Technically, it's titanium white pigment and a titanium white base. But yeah, when you're using pure pigments, it's even easier because you've got so few choices, right? And there's no other, like, it's easier to reconstruct what you did because you aren't working with colors that are muddied with other pigments already. Whereas if we were working with like a red that was more complex and a yellow that was more complex, it would be harder to retrace our steps because there are already other pigments in there. But this one has a single pigment. This one has a single pigment. You're not going to get into trouble at all. The only complex color here is the Rogue Shadow, and I chose it on purpose because I knew it had red in it. So yeah. So that's good. So anyway, hope that makes a fairly understandable explanation. So yeah, this is the attraction of working with things like Clear Bright's Chimera colors, some of the scale color artist tubes, right? You're working with a single pigment, and you are thus you are fairly limited. Like you're able to reconstruct what you do very easily. So yeah. So, all right, any other questions? I don't know if I'll keep the gray. I might keep the gray and try to make it work. I'm going to let it sit while I'm gone. And when I get back, I'll look at it. I think it helps that Kuroniko lives in a place that is used for film shoots a lot. Right, Kuroniko? Yeah, we didn't get to the actual shading and highlighting, although that's going to be the easy part. Trying to nail that bronze color. That was the hard part. Yeah, if you lived in LA, you'd have it, and went down to where, there's a lot of that sort of thing you might also run into. You know, some spots are very, very rife with film shooting. But yeah, so there we go. There's our limited. So the next time we resume will be on Wednesday. Everybody better be there or I'm going to be sad. Wednesday, missed him. I get back on Tuesday, but it'll be later in the day. So next it's Sophie time. We're doing that blue armor thing. Remember the blue armor thing? The blue-black armor thing? It's going to look so sharp, so sharp. Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. So, yep. Gonna take off. I've already got my Poke Bar figured out for when I get into town in Bakersfield tomorrow. Because, you know, I'm on the road. I can have sushi if I want it. But yeah, so there we are. There we are, guys. The dingo should be good in the car. It's just getting out of the car that the dingo is a dingo. Whether she's good in the hotel room, that's the question, right? That's the question. Yes, thanks everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Hope to see you all next Wednesday. Put it on your calendars. I think she grew another one recently. I think I have to wait a couple more months for another one, Twistedoma. You know, Big Chimpo, I am very much one of those people who will eat sushi even in the Midwest because, I mean, I ate it in DFW and it was perfectly fine sushi. So they fly in things on ice these days. I can eat fish, raw fish anywhere. This is one of the wonders of our modern world. Yes. Have a good one, everybody. All right, I will see you next week. Bye.